Welcome back to the Ultimate Homeschool Community Podcast. I'm your host, Tiffany Hernandez. Today we have one of our authors from Education Unleashed. Rinna Harris is with us, and she's here to share all about everything that she's done with her children, with her microschool. Welcome, Rinna. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you. It's so good to be here.
Yes, and your story is very unique because you've traveled the world, you've gone all over the place, you've learned in so many different areas of the world. So you have this like really unique background. Can you share with us a few snippets of that and then we'll hop right into like why you've joined the microschool movement and all the fun things you have to share?
Okay, long story, but I'm going to try to keep it short. So if I start to ramble, just go time out. Okay, so like you said, I have a global background as far as being educated in myriad of different places. So as a child, I was educated in Montessori in the Philippines. And then same with my elementary school years, I spent there in a private school that was very competitive. You got medals every year and they're micro school size really, but it was very traditional, very disciplinarian type of environment. And then the Bahamas, I moved there when I was a teenager, went to high school there. And if you can think of Harry Potter, that's kind of you got sorted into houses. It was super fun, British education over there. And again, like a little slightly different, but very much traditional as well. And then for college, I came to the United States and got a taste of my American education here. And anyway, so my micro school journey didn't really start until after I had become a mom. Like I think that being a mom just kind of sparked that passion in me to start thinking about what kind of education I wanted for my children. I have seven. And so anyway,
Right.
my first child, when she was born, I almost immediately started thinking of her preschool years, if you can imagine that. But
Right.
anyway, yes, my focus turned to my Montessori roots for when I was a child, because I remembered a lot of projects during that time. And I've liked the idea of just working with materials. And my friend and I, who also had a boy her age, we ended up homeschooling together, learning about the method and really deep diving into it, and starting our own little homeschool with homemade materials and bookshelves. And then we had other moms come and join us, and more that people learned about it. They're like, hey, this is something that we want to do too. So it was almost like a co-op where we jumped houses. And one of my friends that was really into it also, Jennifer, she had a little setup in her house. So we just kind of alternated. And then that was in Utah. And then when we moved to Arizona, I started Harris Montessori. We called it a preschool, where I was the lead guide. And then I eventually semi-formally trained in Montessori. I didn't get the diploma, but a certificate. Anyway, it was great. And then I operated that school for 12 years, a little over 12 years. And then it was during COVID, the pandemic, when the schools shut down, that I really kind of got the push to go into microschooling, and almost by accident. But I feel like now I look back at that and I thought it was inspired, that I was led by God to be in this path that I really never
Right.
planned on, because I didn't go to school to go to like get my education degree. My degree is in information systems. So that's kind of how it all came to be. So
It's amazing how we have a path that we think we're going to go down because it's happened with me too. I never got my education degree, but I went for interior design and I'm like, how does this all go into play? But when you become a mom, things shift and change and your focus changes and that really develops something inside of you that's like, no, I want more. I want more impact. I want like these generations coming up. I want my children to have more than what's available. And yes, COVID hit and it was bad. Like we had seen so much interesting educational challenges come up because it really wasn't homeschooling. It was, hey, let's figure out how we can do school on the computer, which wasn't really helpful. And you share a little bit about this in your chapter about how you guys were still meeting and you were getting together. Like you needed that community element. Yes, we still have some school on the computer, but it's those social interactions. It's the way that you get connected. Can you share a little bit about that?
yeah, so when my my children's school couldn't tell me basically when they were going to return to in-person school, I
Right.
really started thinking, what can we do? And so I started, they had this online school, like you mentioned, online learning, but it was very ineffective. A lot of parent involvement that I didn't have for 4 children at the time who really needed. I had a kindergartner, a whatever, first grader, a fourth grader, sixth grade, all the things. And I had them set up, but it was very chaotic. But I started supplementing with things at home, and I just loved the way they lit up every time we went and did gardening, read piles of books, and we had friends over. And really, I wanted to keep that connection going. And so that's
Yes.
when one of my friends, a few of us were talking, and we said, hey, let's do this thing where maybe you can teach the older kids, I can teach the younger kids. And we had like a few micro schools going. And she told me about Prenda Micro Schools, that who really actually was the service provider that helped me, basically gave me the tools and guidance to start my own. And then and that's kind of how we all started, and loved that first year. A lot of the parents that were in our micro schools during that time really wanted it to just kind of be a band-aid for the COVID-19 restrictions on
Right.
school. But my kids, I was in it, and I thought, okay, this is the basically a good jumping point for me, because I love doing my preschool and I didn't want to close it down. And then once I got into the micro schooling, I was so excited because my kids didn't want to go back to school. They're like, let's just keep it going. And I retained more than half of my students that first year, and then got more. And then we just kept going because we wanted to keep that community, the social interactions, and just a different way of doing school.
Right. It's not just a school and academics. When you start homeschooling and you see all the opportunities available, it really becomes a lifestyle. And I tell people this all the time. You are not just bringing the classroom home. That is not what we're doing. Even within microschooling, I have seen so many micro schools open, and it has a home vibe. It just looks homey. It's very comfortable, very quaint, very cozy, very calm. And there's just like an energy that you can sense when you're in that kind of space, that you come into this calm of like, yes, I'm excited to learn. It's not stark as much as we try to do. And I went to public school most of my life. I started out with various different types of early childhood education, but ideally came into public school. And so I know how the classroom works. I still loved school, but there wasn't any other options like we have now. And with all the different types of students that we have, and then all the different types of resources, there's just so many opportunities to bring your children home, to do what you're doing, or to find a place to plug them in, like your own academy. And in your chapter, you talk about your son who wanted to go back to school. Can we talk about that? Because my kids ask me all the time, "Ma, I just want to go back to school." And I think what they're really asking for is not to go back to school, because I don't think that they really want to do that, but they're asking for more. They're just asking for more socialization, more this, more that. You got to pinpoint it. But can you share a little bit about that? Because you let him go, and he
I did.
learned something from that.
Yes. So he's kind of a fun boy. I had him in my micro school for 4 years, and he did loved it. Like he's the type that he just grab a book and read, or he 2 grade levels of math on his own, basically, and did a lot of like cardboard projects galore,
Right, right.
anything, just super creative. But that when he turned 6th grade, he told me, it's like, hey mom, I really want to kind of go back to the charter school that's like you can like walk to it from my house. And
Oof, tough.
yeah, yeah. And we've gone to that school, and it's a great school. Love it. We love it's a smaller charter school. I love their academics, all that. But I think what he was looking for is that more of the boys his age, because during the year I had probably 2 other boys in my school. And so he thought, hey, I kind of want to know what I'm missing, really. I think it's just the curiosity of I don't remember what it was like, or I just want to know. I just want to know what it was like. And so we said, yes, okay, if you really feel very strongly about it, that's completely fine. And so he did. He went, and the first week he came home from school, it's kind of funny. He goes, I said, hey, how did your first day go? He goes, oh, it was fine. It was great. I said, did you meet new friends? And he said, oh, yeah, there's a few possible friends, but they're all nice. And he goes, but the only thing I have a question on is, why do they have so many of these these rules, like rules that didn't make sense. I said, oh, wait, like what kind of rules? He goes, well, I have my friend Wyatt from like whatever, second grade, because he came to my school too and had returned back to school. And he's like, I can't talk to him whenever I want. Like I couldn't even talk to him at lunch really because we sat at different tables. And so I just kind of, this was a chance for him to just really critically think of why there were rules and what kind of rules existed in the school. And so I said, hey, talk to your teacher about why that happens. And so the teacher explained to him why they had these rules at school. And it was to prevent people from getting really rowdy in the cafeteria, things like that. That makes perfect sense for a traditional school with lots of children at lunch, but we didn't have to do that in a micro school setting. So he asked a lot of questions, which was really great for me to see and observe too, like just to think about like, okay, this is great. Like I have taught him, he's learned, not really me teaching him, but he learned being in a micro school setting to ask lots of questions and to be thinking about and be aware of what's going on around him. And he had a very successful year. We had the grades thing come up, the issue come up, and he's like, so really, like, that's, if I totally just miss it by like a day, that would be a F. And I said, well, yeah, if you don't turn it in, it's not going to get in that grade book. But I said it's different than what you really truly know, because I mean we don't do grades in the micro school. And so he had to kind of understand that, and really he thrived in that environment as well, just knowing, okay, this is what is expected of me now, and I'm okay with that because I chose to be here. So anyway, so it's been great. He's going on to seventh grade next year, and he got put in all honors classes. I'm really proud of him for
I
doing
think
that.
I think that's great that you let him have the opportunity to choose his own educational journey. He was at the point where you trusted him and you knew how his character was, because I think that's another thing too, that parents tend to be like, okay, well, we're trying to be protective. Are you going to go with the crowd? It does depend on the child and their character development, their attitude. Like, are they going to be able to stand on their own? Yes, they're going to have to go through and navigate that kind of environment, but he's thriving in that. And that's really what microschooling is all about, is saying, okay, but, and this is with unschooling too, like if the child is thriving in this, what is wrong with it? Whether it's traditional school, micro school, unschooling, where they're just focusing on their interests, or if it's just enrichment or just extracurricular activities, like there isn't really one right way to do education. As long as they're engaged and they're able to think critically, like we're teaching them these skills that they're carrying with them for the rest of their life. It's not just about, oh, are you getting good grades? Oh, are you making A's and B's? Oh, are you like living up to these academic standards that everybody wants to put on you to deem whether you're a good or bad kid? Like that's not what we're doing here. And you mentioned something about in your book, you mentioned kids that you've had come in and share about why they've come in and how they've experienced the school and why they've enjoyed it. Can you share a little bit of that? Because I know sometimes parents are like, well, how are my kids going to like it? How do I know? What should I be looking for? What if my kid's very shy? There's all these questions that we have.
Right. So, yes, I get all kinds of parents, ones who are maybe feeling like they're overprotective of their children. I mean, that's natural. You want the best. You don't know what you're getting yourself into. And so normally, like I would just say, hey, come on tour. You can join my class for a day and see how they feel about being around these kids, because it's entirely really, there's some aspects of it that may look like traditional school, but really the underlying way of how we do things is completely different than a traditional school, because they now that kids get more autonomy when they join, right? And so they have to learn that. So like case in point, there's when I get students come from all kinds of school, they could be public or charter. They come, either they're super shy because they have some anxiety about suddenly like being put in a situation that they don't know anyone, and they're used to maybe even have had some bullying happen at school, or being shamed per se, with they're watching for that. Our kids are going to be mean and things like that. And then really as they go through coming to the micro school, then realizing, I guess, after a few weeks that, hey, this is a safe place for me to be. And so I've had kids, I've seen them transform from these kids who were like, don't even hardly say anything at all. And you're just like, oh, that's so painful. Like you can see the pain in their face. Like, I don't know if I should say something or should I just always like try to look good or what. But over time, they kind of start to that whole facade just kind of melts away. And then you see this wonderful kid that you've always known existed in that little body. And then really getting to know them and going, you have lots of talents, that right? You're amazing. And then they just shine. And then I have students that maybe performed well in a school, and because of grading systems, they say, oh, their parents like, oh, he's great, he's awesome, blah blah blah. And then we take the benchmarks, they come in at like below grade level, for example, and you go, oh, it's fine, we're going to basically, maybe that's just summer learning loss, for example. And
Right.
then also realizing during the whole time that they're in school, you realize, oh, there are learning gaps. And so I get a lot more of those. I guess I should say that this is when I started really realizing that our current system of education, we have cracks. There's things that we need to fill, like the whole idea of not mastering your multiplication facts. That's so simple and so basic, right? But then, like, how do you get to sixth grade without getting that? And so then how do you get a child in sixth grade to seventh grade when they haven't really learned it?
Right.
And so it caused me to think about like, why is it really happening? And they can be going to advanced schools, and if they fit that pacing schedule and they're okay with it, then great. But if not, then those learning gaps just start
Growing. Yeah.
growing quietly. You don't know it. And people who don't have maybe like the time to check in, and they look like they're getting okay grades, you don't know about it even until you're in a situation like a smaller school, for example, and then you're on your own learning your math lessons. Then
Right.
it starts to surface, and then and it's great when they do surface, because then we know what to do to fill those gaps, and then have them be on their way to a more successful learning scenario.
Yeah, we have seen that time and time again. I just got asked this morning by a parent. I'm so worried. I don't want my kid to fall behind grade level with somebody in their grade in public school if I'm going to homeschool. And this parent, mind you, she has a 3 and a 4-year-old, and I'm like, you just play, right? Just read. You do not need to be worried about curriculum just yet. And yet we're still trying to be in this whole comparison. Well, what is everybody going to say about my kids if they're not doing what the other kids are doing in public school at the same time? We're not worried about that. We're worried about where are they at? Because even like you said, in the public school setting or in like the traditional school setting, because it's not just public school, it's charter school, it's all of them where you've got massive amounts of kids in a room, there are learning gaps. And they have to go at a certain pace. And if your child can't keep up, then they're actually not on pace with whatever they're learning. You might think that they're in that same level, but they're just slowly falling further and further behind. So for us to say, oh, well, we need them to be at grade level, what does that even really mean? Because everybody's at a different level, which is why microschooling is so beautiful. It's taking those elements and really taking them out of the pace, putting them into what are we doing for each child, and getting them to not only own what they're doing, but have the confidence to do it. Because that's the other thing, too. Like you said, you've got these kids that are shy, they've maybe been bullied. And we've found a lot of them have come into the micro school world with some trauma, some educational, like academic trauma. We don't think about that as parents. I didn't even think about that till I noticed my kids were really frustrated when we came home. Like, we have to stop and think this is life change for them. It's not just about their academics, it's about so much more than that. So when you can get that child to light up, it's like you succeeded and they are excited about it. And the parents are ultimately happier. The child comes out more of their shell, and it's a win-win all around.
Mhm.
Of course, there's a cost, there's a sacrifice for parents because a lot of micro schools aren't free, but we do have ESA funds, there's educational spending accounts. and there is ways for you to be able to afford this type of education, but sometimes it's hard. Like families like yourself that have maybe 7 kids or something, even more. Like I have a friend with 12 kids. She's the one that runs the co-op, and there's possibility as well within this space. Like Brenda helped you start your own school. Can you share a little bit about that? Because I just want to make sure we're giving people the yes, it's hard, but it's doable and it's worth it. And there's places that help you with
Mhm.
resources.
Okay, yeah. So, like I said, Prenda was my provider of tools and guidance. And I've looked at other ones that do the same. There's KaiPod Learning, there's Acton Academy does the same thing. But I love Prenda for their philosophy and the low cost of like going into it. It's very basically zero cost, right? And then they train you they give you training to the philosophy, which is basically they give you like the curriculum and tools. I've also just basically customized my own as well, and then using theirs in tandem with whatever I've seen that, okay, this fits this child better. So they allow that customization, which I loved. So it's mastery based and interest based learning. I should say inquiry based learning. So for math and reading and language, they provide like certain tools, like we do the benchmark testing, that's through them as well. They take care of all the enrollment, so it's super easy. I don't have to worry about keeping the paperwork. They take care of that as well as billing. So and then you have a network of guides that you can talk to and exchange ideas with. That's also great. And so the resources are there, but they're one of the ones that I think are one of the best in the field right now that can help you get started for pretty easy, I think.
And with the training that you got, because I feel like sometimes we're like, well, is it training that I think I need or that I want? Do you feel like it was overwhelming to try to do that and get your school up and running, or was it like, no, this makes sense for me. It fit in with what I was doing.
I guess with anything, right? There's always a learning curve as you get into it. I had a background already with my Montessori preschool, so that was kind of an advantage there
Right.
with knowing already. Like you can take a summer to do the training, and they will walk you through everything, like how you would set up your classroom, how you would structure your day, for example. These are the values that you wanna core values that you wanna be supportive of and encourage your students to do. So then as a guide, you then start thinking about the very creative ways that you will be able to do that. So they say, okay, we want to encourage community and autonomy and mindset and purpose and like looking forward to like your future, those sort of values. So then for me, then I go, okay, how do I do that in my school? How do I promote relationships between me and the kids and then between each other as well? So we do journaling where we talk about all of those values. And then our dialogue during the day is a lot about that. We discuss, for example, a question at the beginning of the day, or we get to know everybody. Like an example that I love is this was actually also student created. She's like, hey, instead of staying here for attendance, which by the way, in a micro school, you really don't need to take attendance, but they love this idea of they want to play school at school.
Right, of
And so I go,
course.
yeah, right. So what's the idea? Oh, well, instead of staying here for when we take attendance, can we just say like a question where maybe they get to say something like, what's your favorite color? Or what's your favorite, what did you eat for dinner? Things like that. And then they go around the room calling each other. And it works because it's a way that they get to know each other. And then sometimes the discussion comes about and we talk about it. And I love that part of the day because we get to connect. So anyway, so I think I lost track of what I was getting at. But so there's 4 parts to our day, which is, again, Brenda walks you through that with Conquer is your main part where you basically do your math and your core subjects, and then Collaborate would be the part where you do a lot of your group work together, discussion and debate and things like that. And then Create is the portion where you create, like be creative, arts, robotics, anything that you want to do. It's that you have project time. So in every which way, they're not saying, oh, you've got to do this first, second, third, fourth. As a guide, you can be creative and be I'm probably like the most rebellious, and I go, oh, I'm here and then there, and then maybe somewhere in between, and I let the kids decide. And so that's also, I talk about that in my chapter, the scheduler role in the micro school. And that's really, I mean, that was the best. And I let them experiment what type of activities they wanted to put into their day. And I just had one rule. I said, hey, okay, I know you want a longer recess, right? And that's perfectly fine if you guys need to want to play, whatever, but tell me how we're going to fit in all the rest of the things that we're supposed to in a day. And they did it. Like we had maybe 10 schedules and to try out. And then at the end of once they've had the first, basically, what was it called? When everyone's had a turn saying what their schedule,
Right.
their perfect schedule was, then they settled on one that was actually rather amazing. They settled on one with a 3-hour work period in the beginning. And I thought, okay, here we go. This is amazing. You guys did it. And what, no complaints. Like they chose
Because they
that
were
schedule.
involved.
Yes, they were involved. And so they were engaged, and they just, yeah, it works really great when you can co-create with your students. And so that's one of the things that I talk about in my chapter, is the idea of co-creating with your students for everything. Like I do that. We don't do a lot of rewards or punishments in school. It's very much so like it's got to be, we want to have it be internally driven, right? That for the kids to be self-driven. But sometimes they will say some things like, hey, what if we had a pizza party after we do all of these things that we want to do? And I go, okay, let's do it. There's a reward at the end, but I didn't plan
Push.
it. I
Yeah.
didn't push it on them. They are
Right.
when they do that. So I
It
love it.
makes such a difference when your students want to be there instead of feeling like they have to just comply. And I think that element in itself is really what makes the micro school setting so much more engaging and motivating for the students because they can be involved. Now, not everybody has the same philosophy, or their micro schools are not all the same. However, there is more autonomy, there is more engagement and inclusion in what the children get to do, how they get to do it. It's very child-led, student-focused, and centered on what they need and getting their needs met. Because that's the whole point of education, right? Is for them to feel fulfilled and to want to learn more. Like, all we're trying to do as parents is to create lifelong learners that want to engage, that want to be a part of a community, that want to speak up, that can speak up for themselves and do it in a way that's proper, and have those life skills, have those executive functioning skills. Like, our sole focus here is to make sure that they are not getting lost in the gap of traditional education. And your chapter also has an appendix in the back of the book where you share a sample menu of a schedule, which I think is really great. And you've got a lot of options there of different things that they can choose to do. That is so hard sometimes for teachers or educators coming into this. It's like, what do I do? Curriculum, And so we'll have to definitely share more about that in a minute. But I love the fact that you did something for your kids, but you're also letting them choose. You're letting them be involved, and they're feeling so fulfilled that they're influencing the way that you even operate, because it's a co-creation. So with that schedule that you shared, you gave a couple of options, and I know sometimes it's overwhelming to have like so many different options, but you really give those options. Can you share, like, you don't have even all the same students on all the same curriculum, and sometimes I know that can be overwhelming, but can you share a little bit, touch a little bit on that?
Yeah, this was a sort of a perplexing question, right? Because sometimes I will get that even from maybe friends who are administrators or teachers. Is like, how does that happen in a micro school? Like when I ask you what your curriculum is, I'm like, well, it depends. It depends on the child. Because for example, like let's just start at the top, right? Let's talk about the core subjects. You've got math. That one is a very highly differentiated subject, because it really, you can, there, number one, there's quite a few out there that curriculum that's already ready-made. It's amazing. It's been tried, tested. Anyway, we have Khan Academy that has a great program. Zern is a great program also, CTC Math, and then Saxon Math. So all of those have like an online digital platform that you can access. So those ones, they're mastery based. And so they won't let a student go past a lesson until they've mastered it enough. So that's all adaptive learning. So it's kind of nice because you don't have to do really as a guide anything besides set them up on the program, they get on, and then you're there to as a support. So if they run into anything, oh, Miss Rinna, I don't get this. I've watched this video 3 times, but I still don't get it. And so that's an opportunity for me to then pull them aside and say, okay, let's go over here. And sometimes they'll bring friends with them and say, oh, hey, I'm working on this question number 3, for example. Anyone want to learn about how we do long division, for example? And so then they come and then I work it out on the board with them. And then they go, oh, okay, that's good. Okay, then we're back to and then the rest of everyone who's maybe working on, they may be CTC math, 5 of them in CTC math, but one of them may be on 3rd grade level, one of them may be on 4th, 5th, etc. So that's kind of how that's set up so that anybody that comes in, they take a benchmark test or however the diagnostic works for a certain program, you put them on it. And then what I'm really looking for is the interface, because the interface works for one child may not be like exciting to the other. And so you just kind of I let them try all the things when they first come into school. I let them try Zern. I let them try CTC math. They do one lesson and see how the math, however that's taught on a digital platform, they choose and say, oh, I like this one better. Or I
they
can
know.
understand more. They do. And I trust them because they do. Like, for example, I mentioned Saxon math. Now, Saxon math is tricky because it's typically not one that you would teach in a microschool setting because you can't do one teacher to 5 different levels, right? And so there's a service that I use, been using it for 2 years now, 3 years going. Nicole, the math lady, there's another one called Math Assistant as well. But Nicole, the math lady, is like a teacher like me, but you have me on a screen and I'm on a whiteboard teaching. And so it feels like she's there teaching with you. And the students have really kind of like that. And then there's a grading service. So you do not have to mark them. So which means then it allows that student to go forward when they need to without waiting for me, without waiting for me grading their work and saying, oh, you passed, right? It's kind of in that program. And then they can do more questions and more practice questions if they need to. So I put that on them. But for some kids, it doesn't work because it's still that program Saxon Math gives them more autonomy to basically go through, the program doesn't like say, oh, you can't go to the next section until you're done with section A,
Right.
So they can jump around basically. And then if you have a kid who's, gets distracted very easily, that doesn't work for them. So I would have parents coming in and saying, oh, I love Saxon Math, let's put them on that. And then maybe 2 months down the road, we decide, hey, that's not working. They're not progressing as much as possible. So we put them on a different one. And so that's math. And then Lexia, same thing. It's very adaptive for English language arts. The one thing that I, have that's more like off the, screen is the Institute for Excellence in Writing for the writing program. I love it. I see that you love it too. It's so great.
I
and
just bought
love
all of it on sale at a homeschool
that's amazing.
curriculum sale. And like, oh my God, it's such a great deal. But yes, it is a great program.
It really is.
And there's an online program. There's an online portion.
Yes, you can get video streaming if you are one that's like, oh, I don't know if I want to, I don't know if I can teach it. And it's great. They can watch it and then it really goes through, the what am I talking about? The method that they want to have you learn. And, the keywording, all of that. And so that's been great for even really reluctant learners for writing, when they hate writing. I think the structure is what like pulls them in and they know exactly what you're looking for or what they want. It's structured enough to where, okay, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want, and there's not a lot of, questions, I guess, in a child's mind as to what, oh, I want a keyword. What does that mean?
Everything's covered. Yes.
Everything is covered. So I love it.
Everything's laid out.
And have you tried the phonetic spelling?
I have it. I have it. There's CDs. We have like the older version. So there's CDs because I know now it's online. And then we have all of the lists. But I've only heard good things about And this is the thing. You have so many opportunities now to facilitate exactly what the child needs. Yes, it sounds like, oh, but how can you manage all of that? But you're not actually managing all of it. The systems are doing it for you. And this is where we talk about process and systems into our micro school. It's like when you get a system that's working for you, and yes, that means you might have some resources that are helping do the teaching, but kids going to college are going to be on a screen learning online. They're going to be learning from, pre-recorded videos. Even like entrepreneurship classes are mostly pre-recorded or they have to be on Zoom. So you're teaching them to not only be resourceful, but to learn like we don't just have to get the answer from here. There
Mhm.
is other ways to get the answer and find out more ways to do it than one. Whatever way that you can understand it the best is the way that we want to be able to let you learn. There's so many different learning abilities that are now in our school systems, and they've always probably been there, but we're now more aware of them, right? And so your schedule really allows for that, and your sample in the appendix is great because there is a good chunk of, oh, I can get this sorted, I can get this worked out, and you know that it's working because Rinna's already doing it.
So I was gonna say, so that was just for the core subjects, like your main things, like math, your mastery, where you need mastery of things,
Right.
right? So when it comes to science and history, though, social studies and all the other, your core, they're more collaborative and creative. So that's when kind of it gets a little bit more fun and a sort of a little tricky. But in my school, we've kind of have this system now that again the kids have co-created
Created.
with me, and where I help them and provide them this they choose a project off of a list of things that we want to learn for the year, which typically is for the parents that are maybe concerned about, are we covering enough during the year to to compare with like the school down the road, right? So I have this topic list. I usually grab the core knowledge scope and sequence for their grade levels, and having 4 grade levels in a in a
That's a
classroom,
lot.
obviously our list is like yay big, it's really long. And so I go with the flow. I go with the flow. And then whatever ones that sometimes there will be something in there that I go, we need to cover this. So I will guide that one and lead that one and, get my helpers. And pretty soon, once they know you're like excited about it, then you have plenty of helpers and they want to lead it
Exactly.
and they want to do it. And so for those, I usually have kids, they can partner up, they can, choose to do it themselves, but they will choose a subject. They will do the research on the subject. And maybe the scaffolding I provide, I talk about this in my chapter also, like the lifeblood of my microschool, right? The scaffolding, the incubating, and the co-creating. That's the whole thing. For all the processes that run through in the school, I do that. And so we scaffold by asking them the guiding questions so that they don't get lost in their research. Very important,
Yes,
and because they could have something fun that they just wanted to do. And they're like, okay.
exactly.
And then the report's like, well, slide 1, you've got one thing on there. But if you had the guiding questions, then they go, okay, I know what I'm researching. And so it really is, they're writing, they're doing, it's like a writing project. It's also a creative project because they're throwing it on a presentation deck, or some of them have gotten creative and they'll create a video on CapCut or something where they are the scientists on there going today
Right.
an experiment. So it's really
Right.
fun to watch all the things that they come up with. And then for their I asked for them also to design an activity that everyone can do together, and that's when it gets really fun and they get super excited. And really fitting it all in is just that's our problem, because we have lots of ideas and I'm
Yes.
trying to fit it in. I'm like, okay, you're Monday, you're Tuesday. Or they'll be asking, can I have 2 days on my report, please? Because I really need 2 days. I'm like, go for it. If you've got something for us to do, we're doing that. So
Which
it's
is like, how often do you have kids asking for a longer time for
yes,
reports?
yes, no,
But
like
that's
that.
what it is.
That's the majority of it. That's been our experience all last year and the year before that. You have children who are and their excitement for it just kind of rubs off to the next child. So even if you have one that's like, I'm not really looking forward to this, I hate reports or something like that, suddenly they're like, oh, well, can I do this instead? I'm like, okay, sure. That as long as it's, within our, structured
Guidelines. Yep.
framework, right? And we're not learning about dinosaurs for the 10th time, although, whatever angle they take, it needs to be something that is new and something that they want to learn. And also, we're not just on the same topic the whole year. So that's kind
Yes.
of how we get around that and make sure we're still
Hit all the
interested, but hey,
topics.
there's all these other topics that maybe, if you just delved into it a little bit, you'd be interested in that too. So yeah, so that's
Yes.
kind of how we do it for those subjects. So it's really fun.
Awesome. Well, this has been such a pleasure, Rinna. I've really enjoyed, getting into your micro school and hearing about your story, how your kids are all involved. And if you are listening and you have not picked up a copy yet, the notes will have our link as to where you can get that from Rinna. And we will have all of your details as well. Where is the best place for them to connect with you, Rinna, if they wanted to ask you questions about your micro school or just connect with you and ask questions about homeschooling in general?
I have a website. You can go to harrisacademyaz.com. There's a contact form in there and you can email me through there. Or I'm on Instagram also. It's my personal one, at Rinna Harris is my handle. But I check that often and I like to talk about it with anyone. And so
Yes.
I love to have you over for tours and things like that. Even if I don't have room for your child, I love to talk micro school and anything that goes into this type of learning. That's my passion.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Well, it has been such a pleasure. Thank you all for joining us. Happy homeschooling, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks so much for joining me on the Ultimate Homeschool Community Podcast. Before you go, though, don't miss out. Check those show notes down below so you can get those exclusive freebies and helpful resources and some practical tips that we've been sharing to support your homeschool journey. If you found value in today's episode, which I'm sure you have, please, please, please make sure to subscribe, leave a review, share it with another parent who needs it. The more reviews and comments that we get, the more parents we can reach with the support they need. And so your next step towards confident homeschooling is literally just a click away. Just check below. So just check out those notes and we'll see you next time.